A Kremlin aide says Russian President Vladimir Putin and President Trump have agreed to meet in the coming days, and a venue has even been selected. The announcement comes just one day after Trump's envoy to the Middle East, Steve Witkoff, met with Putin in Moscow. Trump called that meeting highly productive, adding that great progress was made. Witkoff has visited Moscow a handful of times in the past few months as the Trump administration pushes for an end to the war in Ukraine. Now, it's not known exactly when Trump and Putin will meet, but yesterday a White House official told NBC News the discussion could happen as soon as next week if Putin also agrees to meet with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. It's not clear if Putin has agreed to that yet, with the Kremlin aides saying their focus is on preparing for the bilateral meeting with Trump. So still a few steps, Joe.
Yeah, a few steps to go. This obviously is moving in a more positive direction and setting up the type of meeting that you would want between an American president and Vladimir Putin, certainly setting up much differently than when they first met in Helsinki. Also, even at the beginning of Donald Trump's first term, the president and aides close to him wanted a meeting with Putin just to get things started that way. And there's always been a belief that personal diplomacy can overcome all other obstacles. It seems the president has moved strongly against that over the past few months, understanding Vladimir Putin has other interests in mind, like the complete domination of Ukraine. Yeah. Let's bring in right now NBC News chief international correspondent Keir Simmons, live from London. Keir, this is fascinating news, especially coming off the heels of Donald Trump deciding to raise tariffs on India for even taking oil from the Russians. It seems this may be more of an arm's length meeting and a possible arm's length agreement if it does come to fruition. What are you hearing?
Yeah, you're right to point out the tariffs on India. It's notable that President Trump didn't remove those, didn't remove that threat, doubled down on that threat, actually, adding an extra 25%. 50% for India if there isn't a deal, and risking relations with India in the process of trying to put pressure on Russia. President Zelensky saying that what happened yesterday shows that the pressure on Russia is working. That being said, we have been hearing this morning from Yuri Ushakov, a longtime aide to President Putin. He was at one point the ambassador for Russia in Washington. And he's a bruiser. I mean, I've tried to question him on a number of occasions. He just stands stony-faced and refuses to answer. And what he's saying this morning is quite expansive, and it's really interesting. One of the things he says is that the Kremlin is looking for a meeting in the coming days, that a location, a venue has been agreed, and that will be announced, and suggesting that it could be next week, though equally with a caveat that there are still preparations underway. He said something else too this morning, though, and it's really important. He's really dismissive of the idea of a trilateral meeting between President Trump, President Putin, and President Zelensky, saying, well, I mean, I'm paraphrasing, but saying, well, it was mentioned by Steve Witkoff in the meeting yesterday with President Putin. We don't really know where that came from. And that, on the other hand, according to a White House official speaking to NBC News yesterday, was portrayed as crucial to there being a meeting between President Trump and President Putin. So I think there is a lot yet to happen here. How does President Trump respond when he sees what Yuri Ushakov has said and gets the message, if you like, that the Kremlin is not rushing to do this trilateral meeting? And another aspect of all this, I mean, look, bluntly, it was chaos yesterday. My understanding is that members of the Trump administration, European leaders, some of them, took them completely by surprise. There was a call with European leaders yesterday with President Trump. Not every European leader that should have been on it was on it. And so I think that this is kind of being put together. It's in motion. It's much like as ever with President Trump. It's kind of happening in real time, and I think that does again raise the question about whether or not this meeting will happen at all, and certainly whether or not it will happen next week. We shall see. We of course know that the Trump administration is capable of moving very fast. Another point here too, just to add, is that for the Kremlin there are real advantages to a meeting with President Trump, because of course there hasn't been a meeting between the Russian leader and a US leader since Russia's illegal invasion of Ukraine, and the Kremlin will see it as an opportunity to look less isolated. President Trump did say yesterday this is not a breakthrough, and I don't think it is a breakthrough if you're in the wider context of the potential for a ceasefire. But as you rightly suggest, if you talk, maybe you get to a compromise.
Right. Let's talk about Vladimir Putin and what may be driving him to this meeting. Could it simply be, is there a feeling for those like yourself who, Moscow is your beat, is what you cover regularly. Is there a feeling that perhaps this is just about being seen with the American president, so Vladimir Putin and Russia is less isolated on the world stage? Are all of the casualties on the battlefield, the fact that they're now reaching 1 million casualties on the battlefield, economic concerns, or is there a belief that he may have more incentive today to meet with Donald Trump and strike some kind of deal to end this conflict more so than 6 months ago?
I think there is a belief in that in the Trump administration, at least. President Trump last week wrote on social media that Russia had lost 112,000 soldiers this year, 20,000 in July. I think there's a belief in among some in the Trump administration that the Kremlin will be looking at that and thinking that that is an unsustainable casualty rate. I also think that President Trump has been ramping up the pressure. The economic implications of tariffs on countries that trade with Russia, like India, like potentially China, they are real for Moscow. Another thing that President Trump has said in recent days was that if you can get the oil price down, substantially down, then that will cut off the supply of money for President Putin. And the Ukrainians themselves have been saying what you need to do is impact the funding for Russia, the funding of the war, effectively. So that deadline, which would be tomorrow, and it's not clear quite now whether President Trump's deadline still stands tomorrow, but that deadline for a ceasefire or substantial economic action by the White House, I think that will have been a concern for the Kremlin. What's happened is that they've walked into a meeting with Steve Witkoff, and this suggestion of a meeting between President Trump and President Putin has emerged. By the way, yesterday we got the impression that that was a proposal made by the Kremlin. Yuri Ushakov, Putin's aide today, seems to be suggesting that that was a proposal made by the White House. That just gives you a picture of some of the games that are likely to be played in the coming days, I think. And again, the Kremlin, if they are going to get this meeting, as well as potentially not looking as isolated as they might have, they also potentially are managing to find a way through, around, choose your language, the deadline that President Trump had set for tomorrow. Again, though, just to reiterate the point, President Trump hasn't lifted, for example, those tariff threats against India. So it's not as if he is kind of, retreating from any kind of stick, as well as leaning into this potential carrot of a meeting.
All right, NBC's Keir Simmons, thank you so much for your reporting. Greatly appreciated, as always.